The vanishing. The ocean has a way of swallowing sound. On the morning of November 15th, 2017, in the cold expanse of the South Atlantic, silence stretched wider than the horizon. That silence was not natural. It was the absence of voices, of messages, of life. The ARA San Juan, an Argentine Navy submarine built to endure the depths, carried 44 crew members. It was supposed to return from its mission, to surface again as it always had. Instead, it vanished, without a single distress beacon, without even the faint echo of metal against water. For hours, then days, no one knew. Families waited, nations listened, the Navy searched, but the ocean held its secret close. How does a state-of-the-art submarine disappear in an age where satellites map entire continents, where surveillance extends to the deepest corners of the globe? And what happened in those final moments before all contact was lost? The vanishing of the ARA San Juan would soon unravel into one of the most unsettling mysteries in modern maritime history. A story of silence, secrets, and an ocean that does not give back what it takes. The crew and the mission, every mystery of the sea is, at its core, a human story. The ARA San Juan was not just steel and machinery. It was 44 lives, bound together by duty and trust. Inside its narrow corridors, men and women shared more than oxygen tanks and bunks. They shared laughter, stories of home, the weight of responsibility, and the unspoken bond that comes from descending into a world where sunlight cannot follow. Among them was Lieutenant Eliana Krawczyk, the first female submarine officer in Latin America. To many, she symbolized progress, a woman carving her name into a world traditionally reserved for men. To her fellow crew, she was not a symbol but a comrade, someone who understood the silent language of life underwater. The San Juan's mission seemed routine. It had departed from Ushuaia, the world's southernmost city, and was making its way north along the Argentine coast toward Mar del Plata, its home base. The purpose was straightforward: patrol the nation's waters, watch the seas, and report any irregularities. But the crew knew what many did not. Their vessel, though capable, was old, commissioned in the 1980s and later refurbished. Inside, equipment showed its age. Repairs had been made, but submariners understand that the ocean rarely forgives weakness. On the surface, it was a mission like many before it. Beneath that calm exterior, however, the San Juan carried weight heavier than the waters it cut through. Because what the submarine was tasked to observe, and what it might have encountered, would soon become the center of speculation. What exactly did the ARA San Juan see or experience in those final hours that prevented it from ever returning? The last contact at 7:19 a.m. on November 15th, 2017, a final message left the ARA San Juan. It was routine on the surface, technical, concise, stripped of emotion. But within, those words lay the last trace of the crew, and perhaps the first hint of their fate. The submarine's commander reported an electrical failure. Salt water, he explained, had entered through the ventilation system and made contact with the battery system. In a submarine, that mixture is deadly. It can trigger a short circuit, even a fire. The crew had isolated the problem, he said. The situation was under control. Moments later, contact ended. No alarms, no mayday signal, no request for immediate rescue. Just silence. The Navy would later confirm this was the last time anyone heard from the San Juan. And yet, the timeline raised more questions than it answered. If the situation was truly under control, why was the submarine never heard from again? Submariners know the ocean is unforgiving, but they also know its codes. Emergencies are trained for, signals are prearranged, escape protocols are ingrained. Yet in this case, none of them were triggered. Hours after that final message, monitoring stations thousands of kilometers away picked up something strange. A sound. A single violent acoustic anomaly detected deep beneath the waves. The report was chilling in its simplicity. An explosion. Non-nuclear. Comparable to a catastrophic implosion. If true, it meant the San Juan never had a chance. But why then had the commander insisted, only hours earlier, that the submarine was safe? What happened in those final, silent moments between the reassuring last message and the sound of the ocean swallowing steel whole? The search begins. The disappearance of the ARA San Juan ignited one of the largest maritime search operations in modern history. Within hours of losing contact, the Argentine Navy scrambled ships and aircraft into the South Atlantic. But the ocean, stretching endless and indifferent, gave nothing back. The San Juan had slipped beneath a surface that looked calm, concealing a labyrinth of darkness 2 miles deep. Days passed, then weeks. Families gathered along the coast in Mar del Plata, waiting for news. Some clutched rosaries, others clung to photographs, their eyes fixed on a horizon that never changed. Soon, Argentina was not alone. Over a dozen countries, including the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom, Brazil, and Chile, sent ships, planes, drones, and underwater vehicles to assist. Advanced sonar systems swept the depths, satellites tracked the waters from above, and submersible robots descended into the abyss. The search spanned an area the size of France. It was a global effort, yet the ocean remained silent. And then, reports began to surface. International listening stations had detected something unusual on November 15th, the same day the submarine vanished. A sharp, powerful hydroacoustic anomaly in the South Atlantic. The description was stark, consistent with an explosion. If true, it meant the San Juan had not simply gone missing, it had been destroyed. The problem was, the Navy did not share this information with families until days later. And when they did, details were vague, shifting, and incomplete. Some officials spoke of a sudden implosion. Others hinted at a possible attack. Still others dismissed the anomaly entirely, insisting the submarine might yet be intact, simply adrift. For the families waiting on shore, the confusion was devastating. Every announcement seemed to contradict the last. Hope flickered, then died, then returned again. The ocean had taken the submarine, but it was the silence of those in power, their delays, their contradictions, that deepened the mystery. Because if the ARA San Juan had truly imploded that morning, why had the Navy waited so long to admit it? And what exactly were they hiding in the shadows of the search? Families in the dark. While ships and planes scoured the Atlantic on land, another storm gathered. In Mar del Plata, families of the 44 crew members camped outside the naval base. They waited in the cold, clinging to every official briefing, every rumor, every fragment of hope. But hope is fragile when wrapped in silence. At first, the Navy assured them, "We are in contact. The situation is under control." Days later, those same families were told there had been no contact since the morning of November 15th. The words shifted, timelines blurred, truth bent under pressure. Mothers wept in frustration. Wives demanded answers. Children clutched drawings they had made for fathers who might never return. The walls of silence built around them were almost as heavy as the ocean itself. When news of the hydroacoustic anomaly finally reached them, The anger turned to outrage. Why had they been left in the dark? Why had the Navy waited so long to admit the possibility of an explosion? Theories began to spread. Whispers carried from journalist to journalist, from sailor to sailor, from family to family. Some believed the submarine suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure due to its aging systems. Others suspected it had been sent on a classified mission, one the government was unwilling to disclose, perhaps involving surveillance of foreign vessels. And in the silence, darker theories thrived. Was the San Juan attacked? Did it cross paths with something it was never meant to witness? Or was its disappearance the result of negligence, a preventable tragedy disguised as an unavoidable accident? Each family searched for comfort in their own way. Some prayed, some protested, some simply sat in silence, waiting for answers that never seemed to arrive. For them, the uncertainty was the sharpest cruelty. It is one thing to mourn the dead. It is another to never know how they died, or why. And while grief consumed the shore, in the depths of the Atlantic, the San Juan remained hidden, silent, watching, discovery and questions. For an entire year, the ARA San Juan remained nothing more than a shadow on the ocean floor, unseen, unreachable, almost mythical. Then, on November 17, 2018, exactly 1 year and 2 days after its disappearance, search teams finally located the wreck. It lay 920 meters below the surface, crushed by unimaginable pressure, scattered across the seabed. Sonar images revealed what experts feared. The submarine's hull had been shattered into pieces, as if folded inward by an invisible fist. The official explanation was immediate and almost too neat. The submarine had suffered a catastrophic implosion shortly after its final transmission. The electrical failure, the salt water in the batteries, it had all spiraled into disaster. The pressure of the deep had done the rest. But as details emerged, the mystery only thickened. Why had it taken a full year to locate a wreck lying within the very search zone, combed over by dozens of nations? Why had listening stations detected the explosion within hours of its disappearance? Yet families were told to keep waiting, to keep hoping. And perhaps most haunting of all, what was the San Juan really doing in those waters? Leaks from within the Navy hinted that the submarine had been monitoring illegal foreign activity in Argentina's exclusive economic zone, possibly British vessels near the Falkland Islands, a region still tense with history. If true, the San Juan may have been on a surveillance mission, a detail the government was reluctant to admit publicly. Others pointed to the submarine's troubled maintenance history. Reports surfaced of corroded batteries, outdated equipment, and warnings from engineers that had gone unheeded. If negligence played a role, then the tragedy was not an accident. It was a consequence. But one thing was undeniable. The implosion had been so sudden, so violent, that the 44 souls aboard never had a chance to react. In less than a fraction of a second, the submarine had been silenced forever. And yet, even in death, the San Juan refused to give up its full story. The ocean had revealed the wreck. But the truth, what really happened in those final moments, remained buried in the dark. Legacy of silence. The wreck of the ARA San Juan rests now in the dark, silent trenches of the South Atlantic, a steel tomb cradling 44 lives and 1,000 unanswered questions. For the families, the discovery brought no closure. There were no bodies to recover, no belongings to return, only sonar images of twisted metal and official words that seemed to answer nothing. The ocean had claimed their loved ones, and the truth too. In Argentina, Grief turned to anger. Protests erupted, demanding accountability. Who ignored the warnings about the submarine's aging systems? Who delayed sharing the news of the explosion? Who decided what the public should know and what should remain hidden beneath waves? Even today, those questions hang heavy. Some say the San Juan was doomed by neglect, a vessel unfit for its mission, betrayed by the very institution that sent it to sea. Others whisper of secrets and surveillance, of missions denied and dangers unspoken. But beyond theories, beyond politics, remains the silence. The silence of 44 voices never heard again. The silence of an ocean that witnessed everything, yet reveals nothing. The silence of a tragedy that became a mystery, not because the submarine was lost, but because the truth was buried with it. In the end, the ARA San Juan is more than a sunken vessel. It is a reminder that the deep sea, even in our modern age of satellites and technology, still holds the power to erase, to conceal, to remind us how fragile we really are. And as the waves close over the site, unmarked and unseen, one thought lingers like a question whispered into the dark. Did the San Juan fall to the unforgiving hand of nature, or to the hidden choices of men? The ocean does not answer. It never does. The story of the ARA San Juan is not just about a submarine. It is about silence. Silence on the open sea, where a vessel can vanish without trace. Silence from the depths, where steel bends and voices are erased in an instant. And silence from those who know more than they will ever admit. 44 souls descended into the Atlantic and never returned. A nation searched, the world listened, but all that was left was an echo, an explosion heard across the water, and questions that still have no answers. The wreck lies deep now, far below the reach of light, a steel coffin sealed by the ocean. But the mystery lingers on the surface, in every family still waiting, in every unanswered question, in every whisper of what the San Juan might have seen before it fell silent. The sea has always hidden its secrets well, and in the end, the ARA San Juan became one of them. A mystery not only of the deep, but of silence itself.